Welcome to our town hall. I'm Greg Silverman, CEO of the Westside Campaign Against Hunger. Today's topic is WSCAH and evolving models of fighting hunger. Just some key run of show details. If you have questions, we'll put them in the chat. And we will get to them at the end, hopefully, if we don't get through them in the process. We're going to just have a discussion for probably 45 minutes and then open it up for questions. I appreciate everyone showing up here today. I'm Greg Silverman. I'm the CEO of the Westside Campaign Against Hunger. I've been at the organization for 7 years. I'll give a few introductory remarks and then I'll introduce our two folks who are joining me today. Carolina and Maria Lizardo, an empty seat here for Maria, who is running across 181st Street right now, because part of our discussion today will be a bit about advocacy, and she's making her way up from City Hall as we speak. So we are thankful for her, and we'll ask her more about her advocacy once she gets here. So for those of you who don't know the Westside Campaign Against Hunger, right? We are an anti-hunger organization here in New York City. We have been doing this work we're in our 45th year. We are best known for many as the first pantry in the United States to build out a customer choice model where people could shop for the foods they wanted, as opposed to just being given sort of just the random canned goods that oftentimes are given out in pantries. And from those early days, we went from one site reaching hundreds of families a week to over 30 distribution points plus home delivery, reaching over 100,000 New Yorkers in need with the healthiest food and being given out anywhere, and complementing all of that with giving people access to our team of benefits enrollers who help folks get access to essential benefits like SNAP. We went from, like I said, from one site to 30, which really what that means, we went from bringing people to food to bringing food to people. That to us is really key. That's another choice and another space for people. We early on were strong advocates for getting a choice of healthy food, right? Giving people that choice. Now we think about how we make choice for the entire sector, right? We advocate to make sure that every organization doing this work in New York City and New York State can get the access to healthy food with their city and state public sector dollars. We're focused on dignity, community, and choice, right? The dignity of our customers, the experience they have when they get food through and with us. The community that we're a part of, which is our staff of 30, our 2,000 plus volunteers, thousands of donors, elected officials, program partners, and of course, over 100,000 customers. We're all just one community trying to make sure everyone has the healthy food and supportive services they need. A lot of this work is in collaboration. We built 6 years ago an entity called the Roundtable. It's a collection of 8 of the most innovative frontline anti-hunger organizations in the city. Groups like New York Common Pantry, Project Hospitality, St. John's Bread and Life, POTS, Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen, Campaign Against Hunger, Met Council, New York Common Pantry. And as of last week, we added City Meals as an amazing new robust partner in our work to collaborate to share data, to drive down pricing so we can get better food at better pricing to be able to serve more customers great food. We share lots of data, not just on food pricing, but anything we can do to make our organizations function better for our teams and for our community. We advocate together. We provide a lot of mutual support. So we're super excited about that effort. And WSCAH, we've been doing this work in partnership through the Roundtable and through all of our program partnerships. We advocate together, and it's really about testing out new models. And you're going to hear from Carolina and Maria about some of the models that have grown over the last few years at WSCAH and where that may go. And our work, right? We all know, as we all experienced a pandemic, a lot of times things change due to the circumstances around us, like the pandemic. And sometimes through that, and even before that, we start to see other paths forward. And I think that's what you're going to hear from today is how we've thought about at WSCAH and across the sector, transforming this sector to better serve our customers, because that's what we're about, is making sure our customers get what they need. So I'm happy to be joined by two folks today. One who just walked in the door. We're going to let her get her coat off quickly. We have in the empty seat, and she'll be here in a second. Watch magic happen.
Oh, we're so sorry.
Thank you, Maria, for being here. Have a glass of water. Maria just came from downtown at City Hall.
No, the New York State Assembly Chambers.
New York State Assembly Chambers. We'll let you take a break. I'm gonna just give a little higher level introduction of you both, and then I'll let Carolina speak first, and so you'll catch your breath. So Maria Lizardo is the CEO of the Northern Manhattan Improvement Corporation, an incredible settlement house nonprofit here in New York City. She's an advocacy lead for many efforts across the city and beyond, including the Just Pay campaign that she's got a button on here for today. Her organization is doing incredible work as a settlement house and doing benefits enrollment and workforce development and so much more, and DV work and all kinds of things. And at the same time, part of their work is being a program distribution partner with Westside Campaign Against Hunger. So we've worked with them, and Maria will speak about this, about how they distribute food with the Westside Campaign Against Hunger. And most thankfully for me, she's also a member of the board of directors. So one of my 30 bosses that I have. And Carolina Cortes-Rivera is one of our newer staff members. You've been at the organization just about coming up to a year, and you are managing a completely new program called our Digital Food Choice program. And Carolina is gonna, speak about this as well. So I'll start with you, Carolina, as Maria catches her breath. So I remember a little over a year ago, interviewing you, and you were speaking to me about the work of WSCAH as you were thinking about the job, but also you were telling me about helping start a mutual aid fridge in Northern Manhattan during the pandemic. And to me, that was really striking. It's obviously stuck with me that you thinking about transforming how food is brought to people who need it. And so maybe if you can just spend a little time, just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to WSCAH, and why, like what that mutual aid fridge was, and why you jumped into that programming.
Yeah, again, I'm Carolina Cortes-Rivera, when I see her. I'm the Digital Food Choice Program Manager here, so I help run the home delivery program and as well as our community hubs. Really trying to kick off our technology in regards to like online ordering and making sure that we're expanding on what choice means, and also accessibility to the foods that we provide. So a little bit about how I got here to WSCAH. Previously, I was a community organizer here in Upper Manhattan, Washington Heights area, born and raised. And so part of that, we were talking, you brought up COVID earlier, and I think that COVID, as we all know, really brought up a lot of the issues that we were experiencing in our communities being like food insecurity as one of the main things that we were seeing across, all of the city. But I think that it also brought out a lot of the strengths that we had, that we hadn't seen in a really long time, what it meant to really show up for each other and, really talk to your neighbor. I feel like sometimes we get so busy and forget to, just check in with each other. I, had the privilege to co-found a community fridge in Washington Heights, along with a couple other community members, called the Uptown Fridge, along with like a bodega owner who was willing to let us plug the fridge in right outside, and then someone who helped build a shed outside. And it brought everyone together, and okay, how can we help? We got people to help sanitize the fridge. Other people were saying okay, we can come and just be there to receive the food and whatnot. So I really appreciated how it brought a lot of people together, and also raised the questions as to why it is that, we don't have as much access to affordable, healthy foods in our area. And also why is it that you walk around and you see more fast food chain restaurants instead of accessible, nutritious foods that would, really impact our health and livelihood.
So you did that, but you applied for this job. What was intriguing about this WSCAH role?
Yeah, I think the values that WSCAH really especially the community part. I see that as something that like in other organizations, sometimes you just talk the talk, but also like WSCAH also saying true to like talking to customers and making sure that we're constantly getting that feedback. So when it came to the technology piece, right, one of the big things that even in this role, I've grown to see how much the home delivery model has impacted customers who have mobility issues and may not be able to actually come in person to our pantry, and the fact that, you know, I hear from them all the time that how that has impacted their lives and how they like just the joy of knowing that they can trust that the food that we send is going to get there and it's going to be of high quality and it's not going to be any different than like the foods and the services that we provide here at our pantry. So I think that that portion of just staying true to the community and making sure that we're not just like talking for them, but also involving them in the work.
Super. Now that we've let you catch your breath,
Ooh.
Maria, maybe tell the folks a little bit about, and some folks I know have come up, our staff and different folks have been up to NMIC to see your work, but like maybe your work that you do across the city, a bit of that history and how it relates to WSCAH or why you thought WSCAH was important to be involved in.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me today. This is a true honor to be able to sit across from Carolina. I just love it. And of course, you, Greg. I'm Maria Lizardo, the executive director at NMIC, and we were founded in 1979 as a legal services and a community organizing organization to support a group of immigrants, primarily from the Dominican Republic, who are making Washington Heights and Inwood their or our home. I'm a product of the neighborhood. So fast forward 45 years, we're a settlement house. Our main site is at 45 Wadsworth, a few blocks away from the warehouse, which I love. And we have an office in the Bronx at 8 Clinton Place that we opened in 2016 as we were seeing that community members were being displaced from the neighborhood or making the decision to move into adjacent communities in the Bronx. But as a settlement house, we need to be in the neighborhoods that we serve. And so today we serve approximately 14,000 community members directly and touch the lives of 32,000. And we're still focused on 6 core pillars, housing still being front and center to our work, immigration, benefits, access and finance, health, education, career services, and holistic services. And so we've been partnering with WSCAH since I think it was 2017 or 2019, with then council member Helen Rosenthal got money and there was a mobile van. And so we've always wanted to do food pantry services because we recognize pre-COVID, food insecurity was a thing. COVID exacerbated it and we are where we are today. So, but we don't have the storage facility, we didn't have the expertise. So we jumped at the chance of having the mobile van come to us once a month and we were serving 125 families. We have a youth program, they were volunteers and they would support community members as they came down to choose their food. And, you know, the whole concept of choice for community members is so important because for most of their lives, you have systems making choices for them. You have others making choices for them. So to have them have the ability to come down and shop for what they wanted to take home that day, to us was really in alignment with sort of our core values and mission. And so fast forward to COVID, you know, we closed our doors in March of 2020, and we didn't need anyone to tell us that food insecurity would be rise even further to the top, because we knew that it was our community members who were some not eligible for federal benefits, many had lost their jobs on the spot when the whole service industry closed, and food was going to be front and center. So by May of 2020, we had figured it out. You know, it was like, how do we make this work? You know, and even though there was a lot of anxiety in the world and fear, our staff responded, volunteers responded. And so today we're 4.5 years later, we're still, you know, one of your strong partner sites. At least I would like to think we're still one of your partner sites. We serve 420 families per month. And it's really allowed us the ability to continue to address food insecurity directly by making sure that people have access to, you know, good, you know, healthy food, but also to bring other people in the fold. Like we have volunteers who come and, you know, help distribute the food. And as we continue to raise awareness, we want to make sure that people don't forget that food insecurity is still a thing in New York City that we need to continue to address and focus on.
Yeah, no, it's powerful work, you guys. And if I remember, the 420, each of the, like half of that is every other week, right?
Yes, I really.
So you have in a sense, two groups of people each getting food once a month, which is sort of the standard model in most pantries across the country in a lot of ways. But that's not the need, right? If everyone, you have a wait list, if I'm
Yes.
correct, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think this is important to talk about, like, in which I think could get us like 420 people, but that's not the max number. It's the max we can support right now, but there's a lot more people who need it.
That's just a drop in the bucket, because as we're doing food pantry distribution, we have NMIC staff who help enroll them so they can be in for the next one. And so the list keeps growing as we serve that 420, we keep adding to that list and rotating people in and out. So you might get this month, but might not get for 2 months because someone else is their turn. And so that harsh reality is really something hard that we continue to grapple with. And that is why, we work really closely with WSCAH and also in the advocacy space, because we understand that we're putting a Band-Aid on this work. We need to feed people now and today. We need to prevent that eviction today and now. But unless we do the advocacy to really change the systems that are impacting people, all we're doing is putting on Band-Aids, and food insecurity will continue to grow, because we're seeing that the haves continue to increase in wealth and the haves not are continue to be left behind.
100%. Before we dive fully deep into advocacy,
know.
I want to shift slightly back to, because it's interesting, like you 420 families coming to get food, wait list even longer. And that's a model where, right, we know even at 86th Street, the one location that WSCAH sort of runs day to day itself, pre-pandemic 200 families a day, height of pandemic 400 families a day. For those of you who might not know this, right, like post-pandemic, after the pandemic is over, 600 families a day, right? The numbers just keep growing, which is like a tragic piece. And so we're trying to find new ways to distribute. And I think this is where it'd be interesting for you, Carolina, to speak a little bit about like sort of the brass tacks of what's happening. Like the program you're helping lead is this home delivery program in conjunction with New York Presbyterian. Like, how do people get enrolled in it? Because this is another avenue of how we're able to find people. I mean, there's lots of people in need, but finding a very pinpoint group in need.
Yeah, so our home delivery program in partnership with New York Presbyterian, called Food Farmacia, is a 6-month program where patients are screened based off the social determinants of health. So namely like housing, food, access to food, and other needs that would really impact, non-medical needs that would impact their health. So they're enrolled in this program if they screen positive for experiencing food insecurity for 6 months, and they receive their food boxes directly to their homes twice a month. And through that, we're in constant communication with them via text, where they're able to change their order. We have like different produce options, different protein options as well. And they're also connected with our benefits access team, and they help them see if they're interested or eligible to enroll in some of the benefits that we help them connect to as well.
And there's also, maybe you could explain a bit about, right, WSCAH started with a choice model where people could choose every specific product. And now, like, what are the folks? So, and then we've done a lot where we're just distributing bags of food that people don't have a choice of the individual products, but we do a lot of surveying, and therefore we actually understand a lot about what our customers want. And with this model, we've been able to test out a different vehicle of choice.
Yeah, so our customers are able to, they receive an online link. It's a personalized link at the moment, and they're able to choose if they want like to receive all fresh produce or a mix of fresh and canned. The protein, depending if they follow a vegetarian diet or not, they could also choose to receive like non-dairy milk as an alternative form of protein, and they also receive their shelf-stable grains and other types of protein within that. So.
Right, so that's also we're sitting in a meeting room at 180th Street, which is where our new sort of warehouse distribution hub is based. And we needed this space for a number of reasons. One of them is to be able to pack these type of kits that have, where we can actually tailor the food to what people are choosing, whether it's categories of alternative dairy or fresh produce or shelf-stable produce. We needed that space. We needed to have a walk-in cooler that can hold like 70 pallets of food, which also led to us having a need for more volunteers, right? So at 180th, we have probably 30 plus volunteers every day helping us pack food up here, while we have another 50 to 70 volunteers at 86th Street as well. And then we've seen this as, I think, and I've had the pleasure of volunteering at NMIC, right? Like we see at locations who our partners are building out volunteer opportunities. Maybe you could speak a little bit, because I think this is also the other side that people don't often talk about, but this work isn't just about, okay, we can deliver food to you, you can hand out food, but there's other pieces there's other wins that have come out of these partnerships.
I mean, first of all, I think as a partner site, it's not just about providing that box of food. It's also about making sure that we connect our community members to services. And so once they're part of our food pantry, they have access to everything that we provide. And so if you're facing an eviction, you know, if you need your citizenship application completed, like just the full gamut, you need your taxes done, like we are there for you to support you throughout that entire process. The volunteer opportunity has been great because, like I said, we've been able to tap into additional partners who are working with NMIC, whether it is the bank, you know, to make sure that they also are connected to our mission in a way. And so volunteering at Food Pantry allows them to do that. And increase knowledge. Like I think people have forgotten that these issues are still very real and still in our communities. I think COVID elevated, you know, and made people more aware, but people have gone on back to their regular lives as if, you know, the whole pandemic didn't happen, as if our communities weren't left even further behind as a result of COVID. And so I think it allows us to keep these issues front and center and making sure that New Yorkers don't forget and that they remain involved and that they contribute and you know, donate time and resources and their money to organizations like WSCAH and NMIC so we can continue to do this work.
Yeah, no, I think right. I totally agree. I think there was a subset of people who in the pandemic jumped in further. And then there's a larger group of people, I think, who would love to see that the pandemic doesn't exist anymore and that everything goes back to normal and we should all feel good and we can pat ourselves on the back. But the truth of the matter is, right, like, and anyone who's living in New York or beyond, I'm sure can see the need has never been higher. Like it's the same thing. We had, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about the TikTok video.
Yeah,
because this is a really interesting thing. I don't know if you know about this story, but like,
yeah, the home delivery program.
It speaks to it went viral and it speaks to the need and how excited people are about getting these services.
Yeah, and then I realized I didn't really clarify too much on the eligibility part of that. So currently, and it speaks to the need because you know, we love that TikTok video really helped amplify the fact that these models work, that things like home delivery are helping so many customers across the city. But on the flip side, we have had to tell folks like, you know, like these are the eligibility requirements. So currently the food pharmacy program, we have to be pregnant or postpartum, have kids under 5, or alternatively be 65 and older with 2 emergency department visits. But even then, like just thinking about beyond the 6 months, you know, making sure that we're still connecting customers with further resources. I think that's where I do see some of the gap. But yeah, speaking about the TikTok video, I know that like it was so nice to see like an unboxing video that you would see, like, you know, when someone receives something that they ordered and they were super excited to receive, and like it just is a reminder of the work that we do. And I know like sometimes it's we forget to, you know, think about who, like the face of the work that we do, and just seeing the joy of our customers, just unboxing her box and receiving her fresh produce. I think that was really.
And this woman got her box of groceries delivered to her home. Within hours, I guess, our team on our hotline benefits enrollment team started getting all these calls for people wanting this program. And because this TikTok video was seen over, I think it was 9,000 times and shared over 400 times. And yeah, this idea that like people, you know, the need is real and also the need to get great product, right? That people deserve, like everyone does, like to get the fruits and vegetables and proteins and dairy, the type they want it, when they want it, where they want it. Like years ago, and there was a lot of pushback, even early in the pandemic, when are we going to go back down into the basement at 86th Street to let people choose? Like, and I very much was like, and our colleague Stephanie was the first person I remember saying, look, there's way more choices we're giving people now. It's not just about like a tomato or an apple. It's about when people get their food, where they get their food, how they get their food. I mean, the first time I overheard one of our benefits enrollment team members talking to someone on the phone, and like they went into their desk and grabbed a different document instead of having to come back from the Bronx to WSCAH and back. Like we've saving people so much time that is never measured. Like we never, and I wonder, I don't know if NMIC does any of this. And I know we're doing a bit of research on the WSCAH side, but like the measures of impact are often wrong, right? In our world, we're almost solely measured on pounds and people served. Like how many people did you push through the line? How many pounds of food? And we were years ago, we pushed back against a major funder to say our numbers went down, our poundage went down. What's wrong? You guys are being inefficient. We're like, we're not being inefficient. We've refused ultra processed foods and doubled our percent of fresh produce. Put that up against the other grantees you have. And they changed their metric to a metric related to fresh produce. But like, how have you seen measures changing, or do you have sort of your self-imposed metrics that you all use internally?
Metrics have not changed. I mean, we're primarily government funded. And so when you're primarily government funded, it is government that sets these metrics. And so I feel sometimes like we're just counting beans. Like we have to report to you that we saw 50 people. And so, but as an organization, we have a responsibility to look beyond that. And so we are embarking on our strategic plan again, because we did one right before COVID, and we were going to start having these deep conversations about, mission and program alignment, and how do we truly measure the impact that our work has on people across the lifespan, as opposed to, yes, you came to this program, but what did that mean for you? Did that really help your economic mobility? Did that, getting that GED, how did that help you? And so now we're back to those conversations, because when government counts and measures things, it's about the number of people served and having the greatest impact without fully investing in programs. And so maybe for WSCAH it's a different kind of conversation where you can push on, your private funders, but we don't have as much leeway. And so we need to find different ways of doing that. And like I said, we're having conversations. Do we serve less people but have a greater impact? Or do we continue to serve more people and have more of a light touch? And so as an organization, we're on that journey now.
Yeah, and I think that is the tough, some in the roundtable, it's one of the things why I think the roundtable's powerful is we have a range of different organizations who function differently. And like in one way, the deeper example is POTS, part of the solution in the Bronx. Like they are really focused on tracking a subset of their customers along a journey and really deeply tracking them, and they have lawyers working and we don't have that, right? Like we may, in some sense, you could say we serve more human beings, but what's the difference? Like what, and we need a bit of both. And how do we think about this? And it's where we're trying at WSCAH, I think, to innovate and be like, look, I say this all the time, right? If you're in an emergency for 45 years, that's not an emergency, it's a failure. Failure more probably of policy than just operationally, but some of the best things that came out of the pandemic in some ways, there are good things, are models like we have with NMIC, our home delivery, like these things didn't exist. The idea pre-pandemic for many organizations, like, send people down to the basement of a church. Churches are great places, but they're not necessarily always purpose-built to be a food distribution hub. Like drive people to that model. And so we have to think outside the box. But to do that, like it's because I just want to focus back on sort of Upper Manhattan. And obviously you have to have community engagement and deep, from customer to policy, every aspect of it. You, Carolina, like in the pandemic, dove deep within your community to set up a mutual aid fridge. Like, how did that impact, like that, not the neighborhood, but like that fridge started and it kept going. It's not any longer in service, if I'm correct. Like, what is the next phase of that, and how does that like link to WSCAH? Like, and do you see you're getting feedback as you're doing this program that we're running here?
So I think, so like the impact I think was just in seeing and checking in with each other. I feel like and bringing in raising awareness as to like, okay, like as a community we're experiencing this issue, and just really like connecting each other with other resources. So I know like we all know word of mouth is like a very powerful tool in our community. So making sure, so it served as like another hub, and I can tap into our community hub program as well. Another hub where people could they knew like what time the food would get there, and they would like, you know, help sort, help distribute without like us even asking them. So it just really showed us like the strength that exists within our communities, and the fact that in the end like we'll take care of ourselves and we'll take care of each other. And I see that now in the home delivery program. I know you brought up the TikTok video, like people were sharing the video with other folks that they knew might really benefit from the program. They were like, oh, like, you know, call this number, like how can you apply, how can you like be referred in. So the impact I think is just a widespread conversation of like the resources that are available, and also like the fact that it does have a really big impact when you do have access to healthy, nutritious foods. I think for a long time, maybe that was something that in our communities we weren't really talking about. We were just focused on like getting, you know, food in general, but also the quality of the food is really important. And I think that's like another part of the conversation that is now like, you know, being brought in.
Yeah. Thoughts from your end on like how do you at NMIC engage? I mean, I know you've seen some of the advocacy, like your settlement community in sort of decision making and policy stances and.
So yes, we are very direct services focused because we have to be, you know, so we're, you know, preventing evictions, dealing with emergencies, and really sort of being part of an ecosystem in the community that is helping to address some of these things. But we also recognize that we need to be forward thinking and really engage in the advocacy space, because government has a responsibility to our communities. You know, the people that we vote into office have a responsibility to our communities. And so in terms of internally, we do have conversations, and we stay, you know, really true to sort of our key core areas. So we're big in the housing space. So at the city level, like, you know, pushing for the city FEP subsidy, because we know we have a housing crisis, you know, and that was vetoed. So we have to do more on that, you know, around the right to counsel, you know, funding to make sure that, you know, low income New Yorkers have access to an attorney who can represent them in housing court and prevent that eviction. You know, in the food space, you know, now at the state level, looking at SNAP for all to make sure that folks, you know, because this is the other part, we can give you food today and it might last you 2 weeks, but if your SNAP benefits aren't in place, you know, you're going to be hungry, and that should not be a thing in New York City, in one of the wealthiest cities in the world and one of the states. You know, I think our budget is over $240 billion. There's enough for everyone. It's really about where it's being prioritized, where it's being invested. And so as a community, one thing that we are really good at is, like Catalina said, taking care of each other, looking out for each other. And so there's a lot of voices that we need to mobilize around these core issues. And as a community, we need to find a way to get those empowered to move, to make sure that they are responsive to us as a community.
Yeah, and I mean, I know just from talking to you regularly and trying to keep up with you on social media that, you know, whether it's upstate or downtown at events, morning, noon, and night, like as you're running your organization, like obviously a big part of that is being like the chief advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you, like there's certain, like you say, you sort of stay in your lanes of sort, maybe, but how is the engagement with like the direct service customers, you know, are they involved in the advocacy? Are you how do you
Yeah.
function? Because I think this is an area, honestly, like WSCAH has done some good work in, but we have a lot to learn, and we can get better at like, right, we have 2,000 thousands of people getting home delivered groceries. How do we hear from them? Not just they like their food, but gee, I think they would want to be part of SNAP for all. They probably should be, or how do you engage your larger network?
So we have, first of all, I think we have different set of stakeholders. We have our staff who are invested in this work and in the mission, and who truly care about this work. And they're doing this not because they're gonna get rich, but because it's also personally rewarding. But at the same time, we need to make sure that they get paid fairly. And that's where we got involved with the Just Pay campaign in terms of making sure that, city and state contracts provide cost of living adjustments. We're gonna start looking at wage parity now to make sure that staff in the nonprofit sector have the same wages or similar wages to those in government. A social worker at the city will make $15,000-$20,000 more than one at a community-based organization. And so now we're involving our staff with that advocacy, because this directly impacts them and their families. And we also want to make sure that people stay in the sector, that they want to do this work. Like, why should you work in an after-school program for $15-$17 an hour and deal with, so many stressors when you can work at a fast food restaurant and make the same amount and be done at 5 o'clock or whatever and go about your business? And so we need to make sure that we support our stakeholders, which is our staff. Then we have our community members. How do we leverage their voices? So at NMIC, we have what we call the Unidad Comunal, which is comprised of, community members, and they, annually they take a vote on what campaign they're going to work on. Like one year, they wanted to work on improving the services to the post office. I was like, what? Like, there's so many other things. But guess what? This is what they're voting for.
Just so folks who don't know, the warehouse we're sitting in is the former
Yes.
180th Street Post Office.
But it was terrible service.
So that went weird.
But that's what they wanted to focus on. But it was their choice. And who are we? And they make to be like, no, that was their priority. And so how do we continue to ensure that we leverage community voices? And just so you know, we continue learning and growing. Like, we just created a position, coordinating attorney for policy and advocacy. Who's going to be doing that? Who's going to help us to organize our staff, but also how do we bring in the community? And so our goal is that, this coming January, February, we're bringing a bus full of community members, staff up to Albany to advocate for the issues and priorities that are important to us as an organization that will have a wider impact on the community.
Yeah, I think especially coming out of the pandemic, all these folks we were all isolated, but people want to be able to use their voices, and some people I think have forgotten how to use their voices, and they have those. One way people, hopefully those who are eligible, and we obviously, a lot more people should be eligible to vote, but obviously next week, we have a election. I hope everyone who's on here is going to go vote. But, no matter the outcome of the election, the customers at WSCAH who come to 86th Street, who go to community hub sites, who go to partner sites at NMIC, or who are customers directly of NMIC, who are getting home delivery, most likely, it doesn't really matter who's in office. Where they are at in life is going to be the same food insecurity struggle and lack of access. And we will all continue to face a shrinking safety net from our city, state, and federal government. So as I paint this really rosy picture, and I look at the home delivery program, and I look at NMIC, and I see this is the future, and this is actually what we're gonna we can drive these things forward. So I see some sort of a positive. What's your positive light that you're seeing as we obviously hopefully get through in a very safe way an election process?
First of all, Carolina gives me hope that we have young people who are in this, who are smart, who are committed, who are dedicated. So I know that this work is going to continue through Carolina and the next generation who is, I know they talk a lot about millennials and Gen Z or X, wherever we're at. Oh, they don't want to do anything. I know, and I'm very hopeful. And hope has to be part of our work. If you don't believe that we have the power to change how things are, if you don't believe that we have the power to use our voices for the greater good and to make things better, then you shouldn't be in this work, because we're not in it for the short-term race. We're in it for the long term and for that marathon, and we have to keep at it. And so for me, it's about hope. I know things can get better. I've also seen wins. I have seen our community members dedicate themselves to something and win. And I continue to ride those wins. And also the day-to-day work. When I volunteered at our food pantry, Plátanos are my favorite when they come, and I'm like, yes, we have plátanos, and I'm always like, cheering that on. When I see our community members just smile and be so grateful and be so humble about this great food that they're getting, and they're all getting the same thing. Like, we don't have to worry about if you get there early, you get there late, like everyone's getting the same thing. And that gives me hope, because I know for that day, like we made a difference in this person's lives, and they're gonna have food today. And that gives me hope for the continuous work that we need to do, regardless of who's in office, regardless of who, we're gonna be around. And we will continue to be around to do this work.
Now, Maria just put all the onus on
I know.
you.
Carolina, I'm
In
looking
the
forward to
future,
retirement.
you're the-
you know?
Yeah, she's ready to go watch her. She's ready to go watch her LA Dodgers. So what may give, in the work as you see it every day, and what keeps you going and feeling good?
Yeah, I think similar to what Maria said, just like hearing that people actually like the work that we're doing. They're not just like, oh yeah, like it, like they actually try to get in contact with us and say like, no, like the produce is good. This is great. This is actually really helping me and my family, stuff, things like that. Like I appreciate when customers actually go out of their way and share their stories, because it's like, yeah, like you should want to share this. I'm glad that like this is actually making an impact in your life. And the fact that they feel empowered to share their story. I know like a lot of times we forget like the impact that we can have, and like that our own stories have so much value. So just I think what keeps me going is like making sure that I'm always like tapping back in and making sure that I'm hearing the needs that our community members are sharing, and also trying to meet them there and figure out a way to continue to serve them.
And I just want to clarify, I'm a Mets fan, really, but
You posted that. It's very recent posted. You were talking about this the other day, Maria, and put this to both of you. And I think WSCAH does good work. We're proud of what we do. I think our team is incredible. I think our community is incredible. But there's more to do. We as well are going to be starting a strategic planning process. Like, where do you, when you think about advocacy and these words, like what is WSCAH, what is WSCAH not doing that it should be doing, or where does it need to go? And also to hear from you as well, like if in your dare to dream, like what would WSCAH be doing?
So I'm going to give you my answer from two different roles. So as the WSCAH board member, which I was so thrilled to join the board, I think as an organization, we need to move more into the advocacy space, because WSCAH has a lot of power. You have 30 partner organizations, and that means 30 different boards, a lot more community members that are connected to those organizations. So that's a lot of power. You also have the roundtable. And how many of us is you now? 7, 8, 9. So you have a roundtable of powerful organizations who are dedicated to addressing food insecurity, who also have 9 boards of directors and a whole other host of community members that are connected to them. That's a lot of voices. That's a lot of power. And so how does WSCAH use its current stakeholders and staff and everyone to really move into the advocacy space and do more of it? And like I said, I'm newer to the board, so I don't know where WSCAH has sort of shied away from it, but I think it's time for WSCAH to step into its power and really lean in a way that is thoughtful, strategic, but leans in order to move the agenda. As the NMIC ED, we're always going to be into advocacy, because we have seen, the impact that it has on larger number of folks in the community. And then we have a responsibility to use our voices, to use the privilege that we have as an organization to be at that table and to make space at that table where decisions are being made. And we want to do this in partnership with others, and like organizations like WSCAH, because it's really, the power is in the collective. It's not just us doing it on our own. It's really about making sure that we partner with everyone, and just everyone, in order to move agendas forward.
Cool.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, definitely moving more into the advocacy space. Like this year alone, home delivery reached, I think, like over 1,500 customers this year. And so like, like all of those testimonies to show that these like models work. And also, even the fact that we are partnering with health institutions and like leveraging that in like the advocacy space, I think that's somewhere that we should tap into more.
Yeah, no, I think we will. I think that'll come out in strategic planning. Ideally, that everyone comes to the table agreeing with that push because, right, we can keep handing out food or we can, as a chef, I want to make sure people have food on the table. And as I always say, like, we can get people more food, but are we going to get people all the tools they need to be able to sit at a table with the electricity functioning and actually a good job that they can actually take time off to be at the table and they have good health and all the key pieces and the housing is affordable and not just substandard, all these kind of things. And I think that's the bigger push if we're trying to actually impact the system. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any, I'm just looking at my phone because I have questions coming through that way. But the only question I've seen so far is someone wants to learn more about how they can get involved in supporting this work. And I can speak a bit of WSCAH and then can speak to NMIC as well. Right. WSCAH every weekday has volunteers at 86th Street and 180th Street. You can go on New York Cares to find the open schedule and you can pick your slot when you want to volunteer. Packing food, handing out food, unpacking trucks, doing benefits, doing sign-ins. So there's lots of different physical types of work you can do at either of our locations, both of our locations. Obviously, we are very appreciative of financial support as well. We have our Plentiful Plates event on November 13th, which will be at Tavern on the Green. They host that event for us. So you can purchase tickets on our website, WSCAH.org. Our Healthy Food Holiday Challenge is just kicking off for November. Lots of community organizations getting involved with us to raise money to make sure everyone has the healthy food they want for the holiday season. WSCAH will purchase roughly 10,000 turkeys and 6,000 pork shoulders plus vegetarian gift cards. So like we're making sure everyone gets the foods that we can, gets the food they need, who's in our community. And that costs a lot of money to do on top of the healthy food that we already give, that extra protein. So we're going to be trying to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars to make that happen. And Healthy Food Holiday Challenge, Plentiful Plates, volunteering, sign up for social media, like go on our website, follow us on Instagram. If you, from your work perspective, LinkedIn is always helpful. Share what we're doing and talk about the work. And a lot of our program partners do amazing work. So like the best example is NMIC, but like how can people get involved with NMIC?
Sure. So I mean, definitely volunteering at our food pantry. You can go to our website, www.nmic.org. Similar, if you want to have volunteer because you know Spanish and you're bilingual and you want to be part of our conversation classes. So there's a lot of different ways that you can volunteer. And I want to make sure that I acknowledge like this year they're gonna have pernil, and thank you for doing that. Not everyone eats turkey. Like I don't eat turkey. And it's the tradition, the American tradition, but in our communities, it's not necessarily the American tradition. So thank you for recognizing that and be like, vamos a dar pernil este año también. Thank you.
We're very happy for that.
So am I.
We did get a question come through about, is there any specific advocacy campaign on paid parity that NMIC's involved in?
Sure. You can definitely go to the Human Services Council has been leading the Just Pay campaign at the city and state level. So you can go look them up, Human Services Council, and you can be attached to the Just Pay campaign where you can also get information on different, like I know we're going to Albany March 10th. There's a day of advocacy. It's like 10 buses going up there. So you can be a part of that. And people are, when they hear the word advocacy, it's like, oh my God, it's so scary. It really isn't. Like you are a resident in the neighborhood, and whether you're documented or not, you have a voice, whether it's on the school board, whether it is letting your elected official know happening or what is not happening that they should be doing. You can vote next week or do early voting this weekend. You can sign petitions, you can go to rallies. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can lend your voice to the different things that are important to you, whether it's climate change. But if you're interested in making sure that human services workers and nonprofit workers, like those that work at WSCAH, those that work at NMIC, and all the ones throughout the city are getting fair and equitable wages, you can go to the Human Services Councils and join the Just Pay campaign.
Yeah, I think this is like a huge issue that so many people don't realize, right? You donate to a charity and you think, oh, well, that takes care of things. It's like a lot of these nonprofits like NMIC, a vast majority of your funds come from the government and you have no choice in what you're paying people, and your people might not be able to stay at these organizations because it's unfair competition. Like your staff needs to get paid adequately, and government contracts also need to pay on time.
To pay on time and fully fund, so usually we'll get paid 60 cents on the dollar on a grant. And you wouldn't pay a private contractor 60 cents on the dollar to build a bridge. You would pay them for the entire bridge. And so we get paid 60 to 80 cents on the dollar, and we have to find the rest in order to make the program whole. And the staff, they are the heart and soul of the organization, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything within our power to make sure they're getting paid well, that they have good benefits, that they too are healthy, because if they can't take care of themselves and be healthy, how can we expect them to be there for others?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm just ever thankful to get to partner with organizations like NMIC, and especially with you as one of my 30 bosses, as a board member. And I say that seriously, like I couldn't have better set of people that I get to work for, and also that I have 30
And to work with.
I get to work with. I have 30. I was going to say 30 staff members that I get to work with at WSCAH as my colleagues. And some folks as we speak right now are like packing trucks. Other people are driving trucks. People are handing out food. Dealing with volunteers, reaching out to donors, getting ready for events, making sure this webinar works properly. There's home delivery. Like 30 people doing all kinds of amazing work, and so you don't oftentimes just see me. But in my face, that's why we're getting better and smarter at bringing our colleagues who are doing cool work together in front of our community. And so I just, we're thankful that folks take the time to, at their lunch hour to come hear what we have going on across New York City, and especially up here in Upper Manhattan. And I want to thank Carolina and Maria for joining me today. This is recorded, so we'll send it out to everyone in our whole network. You folks who are definitely listening in. And so thank you for all your support, and thanks for all you're doing, and looking forward to a busy and impactful holiday season. So see you soon, folks.
Bye-bye.
See you.